Good evening, everyone. Theatre. Theatre is much more than just performance. It serves as a powerful mirror of society, capturing its challenges, triumphs, and evolving narratives. In today's 6th edition of Orange City Literature Festival, we delve into theatre as a mirror of society, activism, contemporary reflections, and education in Indian drama. I am Akash Kumar, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this evening, brought to you by the SGR Knowledge Foundation and powered by Raisoni Education. Theatre has long been a platform for reflecting and shaping societal change, whether through activism, shedding light on current issues, or fostering education. It mirrors the world around us. Today, we'll explore how Indian drama continues to address pressing social issues while inspiring and educating audiences. Now, give a big hand for our first speaker, who is none other than Dr. Anuradha Marwah. She is a professor of English at Zakir Hussain College, Delhi, and an acclaimed author of 4 novels and 5 plays, including The Higher Education of Geetika Mendirata, The Dirty Picture, and her latest, Aunties of Vasant Kunj. Her works are known for their insightful exploration of contemporary issues, storytelling, and character building, and they have been included in academic syllabus across India and American universities. Her play, Ismat's Love Stories, was shortlisted for the Hindu Playwright Award, and her direction of Hindustani adaptation of Media received critical acclaim. Her contributions to literature and theatre continue to inspire many. Now, let's welcome our second guest, who is none other than Mr. Vikas Khurana. Can you please give a big hand? He has been a theatre practitioner for almost 4 decades. He trained under such eminent theatre persons as Satyadev Dubey, Amrish Puri, Akash Khurana, and Nasiruddin Shah. Before he set up Stagecraft Theatre in Nagpur in 2003, Vikas has directed more than 100 plays, including 8 by Shakespeare, which is Romeo and Juliet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and many more. And he has acted in over 70 of them. He is the recipient of several awards, including the Smriti Puruskar, which is also known as Smita Patil Award, and the Rotary Award for Excellence in Theatre. He has also attended theatre workshops conducted by the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and the Royal Shakespeare Company, London, and regularly mentors and trains theatre enthusiasts and students in acting and speaking, including preparing them for Trinity College London speech and drama examinations. Our final speaker for the day is Ms. Puneet Sikka. Let's give a big hand to her as well. She is an actress, media professional, and an author. She has worked across theatre, TV, and film. And she is the author of Take Number 2020, which explores the lives of migrant actors in Bollywood. Ms. Puneet is also the founder-director of Indic Quotient Media Foundation, a company focused on preserving Vedic culture through documentaries. In addition, she is a Bharatanatyam enthusiast, furthering her commitment to the performing arts. Now, we have a moderator with us, and she is none other than Ms. Niharika Chugh Vali. Can we please welcome her? She is a BA Honours English graduate from Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi, with a post-graduation in International Communications from the University of Leeds and the Emerging Leaders Executive Program from ISB. An entrepreneur in the kids' recreation space, she is the founder of Jump, an indoor playground fostering imaginative and tactile play for young children. Previously, she worked as a news anchor with the Times Group and explored design and freelance copywriting. Let's now turn to today's exciting conversation, and now I'm handing over all the set to our guests.
Thank you so much, Akash. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this OCLF session. I'd also like to welcome all our panelists. Thank you for making time to be here to discuss a very fascinating subject, which is obviously a definitive part of all of your lives. Theatre, its power, its magic. Now, as we're all aware, theatre has been an intrinsic part of Indian culture through generations, whether it is a Ram Leela performance or a Nukkad Natak, or even a contemporary Indian play. Theatre has been something of an extension of our politics, of our culture, and in that sense, it has always played the role of an activist, holding up a mirror to our social realities, often celebrating them, sometimes critiquing them strongly, much like movies were thought to do much later. But even in the world of OTT and digital media, what makes theatre stand apart is its undeniable charm. That is rooted in it being art and live motion, the fact that it needs to be consumed in flesh and blood. And anyone who has watched a good theatrical performance will agree that that fusion of dialogue, drama, music, lights, and emotion, raw, palpable emotion unfolding right before your very eyes can give you the kind of goosebumps that nothing on screen ever can. So therein lies the power of theatre. It has the ability to shift the emotional energy in a room and have the kind of impact where you are left, thinking about a subject or a story long after the performance is over. So let's go backstage today in a way and talk to the magic makers themselves, our playwrights, our artists, and our creators who bring this performative art to us and find out what it takes to make theatre thrive in 2024, how these artists are looking at theatre's role as an activist, as a change agent, and as an educator in today's times. So let's dive right in. And before we get into a more nuanced discussion about our topic, which is quite extensive today, I want to ask each of you actually a very simple question, which is, what does theatre mean to you on a personal level? What is it that drew you to the craft in the first place? Ma'am, would you like to start? Puneet.
Yeah. Let me answer it at two levels. One is the story, how I got into theatre, which is kind of funny, really. I'm basically a novelist, and when I got together with my partner, who's a theatre person and runs a theatre group, I found myself, being kind of spot boy, cook, everything for the actors, because the rehearsals, and also, the rehearsals would take place on my terrace. So I said, well, these are like in-laws that I have got. Now, what do I do? Whether I keep opposing them or should I join them? So I did the latter thing. I decided to join. I said, well, why not? So if I'm going to be cooking for them, I might as well write for them. And then ultimately, at some point, I also found myself directing a play, which was kind of completely different from just writing one. I suppose at a personal level, I would say that novel writing is kind of takes one into oneself and sort of it takes so long, it's kind of years and years, but theatre does something that's very special to me, which is it's about teamwork. It is about connecting at once with lots of people and bringing them together, and that's what's so special about theatre to me.
So essentially you rose against the sea of troubles and by opposing it did that.
To act or not to act.
Yeah, you go next.
Except it's
Yeah, all right. So, so the objective of theatre has always been to entertain and to educate. And I think from the beginning of time, really, from the Greek theatre to theatre in churches, the kind of transformation we've seen over years. So, in a sense, at every level, I think it was primarily to sort of wake up people. So I don't think activism was a word then, but essentially through theatre, religious beliefs, social causes, uh, various other segments were addressed, and it became a means of, spreading the so-called good word around. And I think, as far as that is concerned, I don't think there's much change in the theatre as we see it today. Of course, a good story to kind of get the audiences involved and engrossed at all times is paramount. Because unless you have a good story to tell, a strong message to send, it will not sort of, reach its desired conclusion or effect. So yes, I think in a sense that's what the essence of theatre has been through the ages.
Good evening. My reason for getting into theatre is very personal. I was very afraid of actually going on stage, and I was in college, and I mean I grew up training in music and dance, but theatre was a different ballgame altogether. Doing a stage play was extremely frightening to me as an idea, because with music and with dance, that part has been rehearsed and there is really no scope or space for improvement. There is, but on stage you're not improvising as such. Once you've, say, prepared a classical piece and you're performing on stage, so you have done that repeatedly, and so is with dance. With stage play, however, you're doing a whole lot of things. You're not just acting, you're thinking, you're saying a dialogue. That dialogue is not just saying it, you're just sort of this, so you're feeding off of the energy of your co-actors, and there is so much more. So there's that kind of participation in that sense sort of made me a little scared for some reason, and I was not confident of exploring that growing up. But when I was in college, I decided that I'm going to, the only way to deal with the fear is to sort of throw yourself into it. There's really no other way around it. And so I started tiptoeing my way into the Dramatic Society in college. And I first signed up and I said I'll be the backstage person. So I used to be the one doing all the backstage activities. And gradually, when there would be a little spoof sort of on the annual day or something like that, there would be a little bit of a breather sort of a performance. I would just scoot in and be like that Men in Black or something. I remember one of those, that was my first act actually, playing one of the Men in Black. But my point is that for me, theatre was that personal in the sense that it was something that just weighed on me, that if I wouldn't do, and that was just sort of it was a debilitating fear basically, and that was just consuming me, and sort of I had to just deal with it and see if I enjoy it anymore after that. And I would have at least done it and tried it, and then sort of if I needed to dust it off I would, but that didn't happen. So thereafter then in my working life, I just felt that, I mean, one has so much energy in their 20s especially. You just post work hours at 6-7 p.m, you're like this, the day has just begun, But for me, it was about just joining a theatre group and then going for rehearsals. So I suppose it's plain and simple for me. So I did not really think much about it other than that I want to explore this part of me and see that, how well do I take to it. And that is all that theatre is. And it stayed in that sense.
That's lovely and quite inspiring. A story of fighting fear yourself, like nothing else pushing you but your own mind, And lovely, 3 different stories from 3 amazing people. You mentioned improvisation when it comes to stage plays and performance. And that's where I want to bring Anuradha ma'am in, because in your recent adaptation of the Greek media, I believe you have kind of broken away from the usual template and adopted a style wherein you do away with the stage and your actors perform in the round. Is this something deliberate? How did it come about? And do you think in the current time there will be more such improvisations and innovation in terms of what traditionally theatre has come to mean?
Well, it's not so much innovation as restoration of something that was there. Unfortunately, what has tended to happen is that theatre got divided, like most other forms, into something that was art and something that went for activism. So the stage plays would be where you go to watch a really good literary production, and when you did street theatre, it was like activism. So fine, things, no profound themes, you have to be direct. Often the aesthetic values are kind of low, that seemed to be the operative thing. And at the activist theatre where I am, we ran into it again and again. It was as though that the art, the whole effort that goes into putting up a play was somewhat minimized there, and it was only the message was kind of paramount. I'm so glad that Akash said this, that but when there was nothing called activist theatre. It was perhaps all theatre needs to be in that sense activist. In that sense, maybe it's not just a mirror to society, but it's like a magnifying mirror. Really, it's kind of magnifying certain aspects and making you see them for what they are. So coming from there, what I was doing with media was really taking something which was supposed to be only for the very, very evolved audience, a Greek play, which would kind of, it was a sort of a given that it would be watched only by people who knew about theatre, who knew about literature. So the challenge that was there was that it's such a good story. It's such a fantastic story. And when we started working at this theatre in the round, the idea in the head was that this is a kind of theatre which should appeal to everybody, and that's what we were trying to do. So we ultimately did that we performed media in the Habitat Center in Delhi, in a air-conditioned, nice conference hall. We weren't using the stage, so we performed it in a very nice space, which is what one associates with theatre like this, media, Greek, so this is how we would perform it. But we also performed it in a tin shed in Mangliavas, which is a village in Rajasthan. And let me tell you, the kind of responses we got were equally nuanced, no matter, whether we performed it in Mangliavas or we performed it at the Habitat. My actors, for instance, were they felt that the Mangliavas response was the most wonderful response. And because, there, at once people were, connecting with the story as though it was their story. So, it was like the actors became, it was भैया. You know, that's how the conversation would take place. Jason भैया ने ऐसे किया और मीडिया दीदी ने तो ऐसे नहीं किया. You know, that is how the conversation took place. But the nuances, I mean, every single nuance that Euripides would have thought of or not, you know, I mean, it was the sexual jealousy that is there in the play, the dilemma that is there. You know, Medea kills her children. That's the story. But she kills out of love. She doesn't kill out of hate. So I mean that whole complexity, it was, I mean, everybody got it because it was about emotion. So I suppose that is what, I don't think we were doing something new. We were just trying to, I suppose, restore what had been, what the way theatre started off as, especially, I mean, if we are talking about Greece, it was like citizens, you know, everybody came and watched, and you know, I mean, it was a basic thing that led to Greek democracy, you know, in a sense. So, yeah.
So in that sense, you have kind of localized a classic and made it more accessible to the masses, so to speak. And access and audience is what seems to be the issue really with theatre.
You know, I only cut out the
the
Greek myth, that's it. Otherwise, it didn't cut out anything else, really, from the play. Just those long, you know, very, very mythical stuff, you know, where they talk about this god or that god. Only that was kind of really cut off.
Right, and I want to bring in the issue of audiences and access here, because theatre has traditionally been something that has a very niche audience, especially in India. I mean, barring bigger cities like Bombay that have a Prithvi Theatre, or Delhi which has NSD and a few other handful of institutions and platforms for performances, we really do not have much. So it's a very practical and real problem for someone in theatre business to not only get their message across as artists, but also to keep it viable and to reach a larger audience, because at the end of the day, even if you keep the commercial aspect aside, an artist would just want to reach more people with their message. And Vikas has been in the business, of course, since 2003, if I'm not mistaken, with Stagecraft, 100 plus productions. I read in one of your interviews that the tickets for your first play or something were sold at something like 10 rupees, because that was, you know, that's how hard it was. And today you're performing at Prithvi. How have you seen the industry evolve, and what are the challenges you face?
Yeah, so taking further from what she said was essentially, so you know, in a kind of, you know, the kind of belief that people have that anything that is a nukkad natak or street theatre is essentially for activism, and what happens in auditoriums and air-conditioned spaces is again for entertainment purposes only. However, I think they are not mutually exclusive. You can have, as she very rightly suggested, we do a play, Sophocles' play, and kind of make it in such a way that it sort of it's relatable to every audience, every segment of audience, whether economically different or socially. So it's something that they can kind of relate to. Having said that, you see, also, you have to understand that theatre itself is like a separate entity. More often than not, it is always compared to cinema. Now, cinema, it has definitely a larger mass appeal, where it is star-driven. So, if you have an ordinary play in which a star is performing, I was going to give Nasir's reference, but by no means are his plays mediocre. What I'm saying is that even if you don't know anything about the play, a Nasir or a Makaran Deshpande would always get full houses because of the star value.
Yeah.
And you see, so that's the nature of the beast, really. That's how theatre in India is. That everything, whether it's cinema or theatre, is driven purely by star power. So even if you are talking about activism and you're trying to send across a message, you'll be able to send out the message brighter and stronger if there is a star attached to it. Never mind the quality of the production. However, yes, in a sense that it's, as far as theatre goes are concerned, like I said, because of the star reason, because of the popularity point of view, it is always a struggle to be able to get audiences for theatre. Now, as you very rightly said, Bombay, Delhi are a different kettle of fish because theatre going is part of their culture. So now, with the in addition to your regular Prithvi or the Tata Theatre or the NCPA, there are several more theatre spaces which have constantly been on the rise in a city like Bombay, because there are more than 500 theatre groups there. And unfortunately, Prithvi or the NCPA cannot accommodate everyone. It's all a question of dates and issues and of that nature. So, which means that a whole spate of smaller spaces have now opened in Bombay. There are 40, 50-seater auditoriums. They're all doing extremely well. They're all running to full houses. And in a sense, that's almost like hitting a middle ground, because you have so many theatre groups, you have so many actors, they get a platform to perform. They have each one of them as literally a kind of a dedicated audience which comes and watches them. Each segment of an audience can now decide to watch the kind of plays they want. So I'm saying is you can do a play with a message at Prithvi, and maybe in Aramnagar in a small theatre space you can do a pure potboiler entertainment. So I think somewhere Bombay or Delhi, I don't know too much about Delhi, but I assume Delhi also, it's kind of all those stark lines are now blurred. So I think there is a sort of fusion or kind of interrelation between theatre to entertain. Even if you are sending a message, even if it's theatre which talks about a certain message, I think it doesn't really have to be forced down people's throat. You can send out the same message while you're entertaining them as well. So you just got to say, okay, now this play is about dowry, and I am going to stuff it down your throat. I don't think that thing exists anymore.
Right. Puneet, you've had a slightly different career trajectory in the sense that you forayed into theatre and then went into writing. And a lot of your experiences in theatre and acting are reflected in your novel. And not only that, in your book you deal with some sensitive subjects too, like Me Too, like casting couch. These are all controversial issues from your own observations as an aspiring actor. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
About the book.
Yes.
Well,
Take number 2020.
Yes. Well, this is my first book, and so just to give you a little background, I started my professional career writing, and I think I'm an accidental writer because I just enjoyed writing when creative writing, as one would in school, and that became again the formative years is when you don't think too much, and I was writing in college. I was writing for the campus newspaper. So gradually, when I started working, I was writing and creating and everything, but it was all short form writing. I started working with a news channel, then I was working with a fashion marketing firm, where also, even though I was employed as a marketer, but I was writing, and then with an advertising agency as a copywriter. So I had sort of understood short form writing very well, and I was doing theatre on the side in all these jobs that I did. But when I went to Bombay, having done theatre that long in Delhi, auditioning for television and films was a natural extension once I was in Bombay. And I was just sort of seeing and observing and just sort of soaking it all up with no intention to write whatsoever, just there to audition and act. But I was feeling underwhelmed with the scripts that I was reading for the female parts, and somehow that was just not feeling very, very satisfying. Even though one does what one does, you're just there. It's just you go one audition after another audition. So in some conversations with friends in different circles, it came up that maybe I should consider writing my own roles. I mean, what's stopping me from exploring two different forms of creativity? If I've been a writer, I toyed with that idea, but I did not really act on it. But then I was still scribbling, so I was going back and forth between that. I did have a sort of a structure in my mind, but I was still not satisfied. What could the plot twist be? What could this be? That be? I had some sort of an idea. This is all from the people that I had met, the friends I had interacted, the acquaintances, the colleagues, the experience of being on a shoot set. And what are my challenges as an aspirant, as somebody who is there and who perhaps has the similar goals or ambitions broadly as 50 other people in that auditioning room. What's different? We're just coming from different backgrounds. So I just thought that I'd take a sample size of the hundreds and thousands that come to Aramnagar. Aramnagar is that melting pot of auditions in Bombay, where all these production studios and casting studios are located. And I thought that maybe I can take sort of a sample size of people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, linguistic backgrounds, and they all come with the same goal, with the same purpose, wanting to just sort of somehow get that visibility and somehow make it become whatever their next goal is, the next Shah Rukh Khan or whatever they want to be. And so when I was scribbling, I was literally putting pen to paper. I was not even typing it on my laptop. The next year, COVID happened, 2020 happened, and I found my plot twist essentially. But I mean, it's not to minimize what we all experienced, but I just felt that as actors, as writers, as people who are creating from life, you cannot be removed from it. You may not have experienced. Each one has experienced the pandemic differently. But that does not stop us from empathizing with somebody, even if we come from a different background as theirs. That was the power of the news and what we were reading and seeing, and we could understand that there's so much going on. And I somehow just wanted to tell those stories through the characters who were actually film actors. And so my point is that as a writer or as a creator, you have to, the wider your experience, the deeper you go with what your performance is or what you're putting out there. And so this book came up through that, with that. And I have personally not experienced any of the casting couch of the Me Too because I was a very small fish in that whole scenario. I was just one of those many people. But of course, you do sense that how all of this dynamic plays and how that women from any walk of life, if they are an actor, they're just naturally wired to sort of watch out for themselves. That's another thing, but that's in life also. It's not just the film industry. It's not just women. Correct. It's not just women, but I'm talking from my perspective, so I'm saying it like that. But of course, it's not just women. But I'm just saying that in the film industry, one is with sometimes the costume and with all of that, you just become sort of the cynosure of all eyes, and you sort of are training yourself to just put yourself out there in a certain way, no matter how you're dressed. I mean, that is also something so that's my perspective is what I'm saying. However, when I started writing, it was, like I said, it was a role that I was writing for myself. That's the motivation of why I started writing a story. And that was one character, which was Meera. And as I developed the story, more characters came in. And like I said, I picked a sample size. So different people from different parts. So Meera comes from Chennai and she's there. And then there is Dablu who comes from a lesser privileged background from Bihar. And he's doing all the jobs that one does to sort of keep the stove burning. He's a spot boy, he's a cable operator, he's doing everything. He's a popcorn guy at the cinema. So everything, and then he will keep auditioning in whatever he gets. So everyone coming from, and then there is a sign from an affluent family, a business person's son who is also there, and he's just at the gym all day. So we have these sort of stereotypes also that we see, but we see all kinds. And then there was the casting director who's accused of Me Too. I mean, these things have played out in life, so it is not that one is caricaturing any of them or anything. You'll have to tell me if once you read the book. But when these characters were put together, and then on top of that, the pandemic, how do you put something which is films as such a physical sort of element? When in the lockdown you're just virtually there, so that also was very. And I also being an actor, I was getting calls from. I was wondering the first 2 months, how's this going to play out? How will the film industry get back on its feet? But then eventually, the self tests and auditions began, and then people started coming back into the mainstream. So this story came from that aspect, from the motivation of wanting to write for something for myself, to it becoming something about having made that observation without realizing it. And to be honest, I still did not write it as a book. The book is accidental because I wrote it as the script for a web series. So I actually wrote it episodically when I started writing it. It's only when I started fleshing out each episode, they became chapters, because then I realized that, well, I have a story to tell and there is a lot to tell, and it was madness. So I did not have any method to that madness, to be honest. So this was the most brain frying experience for me, because it was my first book. And now, of course, if I do write my second or third, I would have a method to the madness. But in the first book, it was pure madness. And so to be able to tell a story and to put it in a way which is readable, and not just readable, exciting for the reader to know. Now we all know a little bit about Bollywood because it's just sort of thrust in our faces. We anywhere we go, even the most removed person would know a little bit about Bollywood. But so that was not a challenge. The challenge was, how is somebody who is just living their lives, which has nothing with nothing to do with Bollywood, who is there trying to make it in Bollywood, how do they navigate their lives and their challenges in the pandemic? And that sort of gave me a lot of interesting things. So that is how. And now I've written the book. It's a very visual read, because that's how I envisioned the book, as something that we watch. And films are that. Films are that thing that you watch. You sit in a hall and you watch it. It's an audiovisual medium. So I wanted to make sure that the writing also sort of evokes that sort of a response from the reader, that they're seeing something. And therefore, that's how it became a book. So
Very interesting, and I guess that's the secret to good writing, right? The fact that you can make it easy for the reader to visualize. You mentioned the pandemic, and of course, it changed a lot for the insider in the industry. But I want you to throw a little light on, in the larger context for the theatre industry. We had OTT come in, people get used to watching content on their screens at home, on their personal devices. What has that meant for the theatre industry? Does it mean that the theatre industry now has to innovate and find another way to make itself more visible? Or is it that somewhere down the line, actual physical experiences like investing yourself physically and materially in a particular place to consume content like a stage play, is that going to become the norm? How do you look at it as makers?
The theatre group I work with, we during the pandemic we did experiment a whole lot with. We did experiment a lot with sort of online performances, where we were sort of in a way bringing bringing some aspects of cinema and combining it with real-time performance. So, we did try some interesting experiments with that, and we did get a whole lot of, people, the audience-wise, it really ran into many thousands, because I think people were also looking at that time, the people were looking for these new modes that were coming in. Having said that, I think theatre is really about connect, real time, and personally, me and I think a whole lot of us are very glad that the pandemic ended and we could, sort of again go back to what we understand as theatre and performance. I personally did not take to the online thing at all and refused to do anything at all with theatre when this kind of a thing was on. But I could do it because I was doing my novel writing. With theatre people, I think at that point were I think it was a big challenge which they met in various ways. I suppose this another way would another thing that we sort of didn't really do it, but I was just wondering whether we could experiment a whole lot with masks, with the theatrical masks, when it was we were not supposed to sort of, but this was just an idea I never really did think of. I also wanted to, when we talked about Mumbai and we talked about Delhi and what's happening with theatre there, just wanted to bring in Bengaluru as well, because that's another place that seems to have a very interesting kind of stuff happening there. And Kolkata, I don't know much about. Anything about, but I would love to find out. But Bengaluru, it just happened by chance that a theatre group there wanted to perform a play of mine. I didn't know them, and when they performed it, this was Ismat's Love Stories, which was about Manto and Ismat, and I was very, very curious as to how it would go in Bangalore, because Delhi, Ismat Chugtai and Manto are like, everybody knows them, and the same thing doesn't work in quite the same way in Bengaluru. So I was very, very curious as to how they would respond to it. So I went for those performances, and it seemed like there were these small theatres, and in various parts of Bengaluru, it's a huge city. So they would where this tech hub is, where all the techies live and all. They have a theatre there, and then they have the Rang Shankara, and then so it's kind of like it's literally in a housing society. They had a theatre. So and these theatres could be rented at fairly reasonable rates. I asked them, how are you managing the finances, and they could do that, So that's also very interesting as to how Bengaluru is emerging as. I don't think it quite works this way in Delhi. Delhi is still like what we understand by those old theatres, the main Mandi House. Kamani and all extremely expensive, and
Sriram Center too.
Sriram Center, they are like almost out of reach. I don't know how those lakhs and lakhs are managed just to get that space.
Very elitist.
Very elitist, it is kind of not at all like. So Bengaluru was this kind of very, very happy experience for me.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but Bangalore and Calcutta are more regional theatre rather than English Hindi specific.
I think that's what the Kannada, the Kannadiga, they are that's what's saving
because
them.
even at Rangasankara, they give preference to Kannada groups
Yes,
rather than the
yes.
outside.
They just do like a few,
Correct,
one or
yeah.
two, English plays.
But I think in terms of purely English and Hindi, I think Bombay is that way. It's just two languages essentially. And of course, there is a complete parallel Marathi theatre. But Marathi theatre is huge. It's huge. Yes, even, and so I'm saying is they would never perform at a Prithvi because they need 2,000-seater auditoriums. That's the kind of audiences they have.
Yes.
Tamasha is real school. Shanta.
No, she's talking about
Tamasha theatre. Okay. Yeah, so that's that. That's again an extension of your Nagpur natak, so to speak. Yeah. So.
We have very little time left, so I'm going to get one question in, and all of you can just pipe in, and then we can open the floor to some questions from the audience. I want to ask you what you think about the way forward for theatre. Do you think we are going in a good direction where there is enough theatre education for children in school, enough opportunities for students in college to experiment with stage plays, street theatre, all its various forms?
actually no-brainer really. I mean, theatre has lived beyond time really. So there's no such thing as, theatre is not going anywhere, you know. It's been there forever and it'll last forever. So there's no argument as far as there is concerned. But yes, coming to your question about school, I see, earlier I remember when we were in school, there used to be these annual concerts which were like variety entertainment. We had an English play, a Hindi play, a few dances, and that was the annual concert. But now I think as I interact with a lot of schools, and they really are very much into theatre-specific programs. Like for instance, I did a play for a school. It's an ICSE school, and since Julius Caesar was part of their curriculum, they wanted their annual concert to be Julius Caesar. So I directed Julius Caesar for them with over 200 actors. So I'm saying is the intent now from school is that much more stronger. And I think most schools have also introduced theatre as a curriculum, as you know, they haven't made it compulsory, but it's a very strong option across all schools, across all boards, not only IB but CBSE and ICSE as well. So yes, I think the future for theatre looks very bright and strong, and we shall dash on regardless.
Puneet, would you like to add to that?
Without the stars.
I think what Sir said is absolutely spot on, and just that, you know, how there was a discussion I was having with somebody about books, physical books versus e-books, and that, you know, bookshops are going away, and that, you know, we'll never, it's just about time that the concept of libraries and bookstores is going to just sort of go down, but somehow that's not going to happen. It might dwindle for a little bit, there might be a phase, but books will be books, and similar to theatre, the theatre has lived before us, and it will outlast us. There's one thing I just want to add. To talk about the future of theatre, and theatre is not just a stage play as an act, but as a performance, but there's also, it also includes, I want to make a mention of puppetry. So I have worked with Mr. Dadi Padamji a whole lot, who is a master puppeteer, and I have noticed and I've observed how he has, through puppets, communicated some very difficult, almost taboo subjects, not just to children but to adults as well. And so I think that sort of education, not just for children but for adults, is also something very interesting, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen through some very depressing, dark sort of messaging, but it can also happen through, in a way where you're saying what needs to be said, but without sort of either traumatizing the little child or without making it a sort of an overload for an adult viewer. So just as an example, they had to talk about AIDS awareness at Dharavi slums. And so how do they talk about a subject as dense as that? So they did that with puppetry. And it just made the point, and it was for adults, when you're talking about this. So some conversations or some subjects which are difficult to have to communicate or to have a dialogue about, and to sort of educate people who really need that education, to sort of go into those spaces. Sometimes in theatre, we might need a language, like we were talking about Hindi and Marathi and Bengali and all of those Kannadiga language theatres. Sometimes in different forms of theatre, like puppetry, you sometimes may not even need language. Then you're just sort of putting up these puppets and you're doing that performance, and you can actually have that difficult conversation in front of children as well. So I think that is something which the future remains, and it just needs to be explored a lot more.
Actually, just Mr. Frank.
Yeah, at the risk of missing my flight, can I just say two things?
Please go ahead.
One is that I'm so glad you talked about puppetry, and the non-traditional avenue theatre can really take so much, can use so many of these other forms. I used, in Vidya, I used puppets for the children who who were killed by media, so they were puppets. And what you just said, that what you can't show, at times, the puppets can sort of communicate that. So the goriness of that murder perhaps became, you could take it in, because
Tarantino does in his films, anime. There's a lot of he shows that.
yeah. So this was one point that I wanted to make, and the only one. And I think I'll have to say bye now because I must catch my flight.
Yes. We can let you leave. Please make a round of applause.
I have just one question. This question is for the directors. Hasn't the government been too apathetic? Especially small towns like Nagpur, where even if you stage a play for free,
Yeah.
there are hardly any, to put it very crudely, any bumps on the seats. So could the government help by somehow incentivizing audiences? Give them money to come and watch?
See, this whole thing of funding theatre is such a, it sort of goes off in so many different directions because money always comes with a string.
Absolutely.
And, for instance, there's been so much funding for street theatre, but it's like taken the fans out of it, because you don't do political commentary, you just do sort of.
Even folk theatre. Folk theatre.
Yeah, so folk theatre is one beneficiary. I would say that because it's been getting. We've been able to preserve certain forms of theatre because there's been some money for the traditional actor. Otherwise, they would have to give up. Otherwise, because they weren't making enough money. But I'm just saying that that funding for theatre, when governments or for that matter corporates or anybody does this funding, it's a little. It goes this way or that way. But that's the thing with the market, isn't it? Wherever finance comes, there are these issues that one has to, those riders that just these I suppose would have to be sorted out.
This government.
One way or the other.
This government.
Out of words.
No, but because how would you lure the audience to auditorium setting?
See, at the end of the day, we need to have a good story to tell. I think that's how you can. I guess so, and hope that they are excited enough. And just hope that So I guess it's. So I just guess we have a good story to tell. We've been doing adaptations of books. So our basic philosophy has always been read the book, watch the play. Or if you haven't read the book, watch the play, read the book. So we've done so many book adaptations, brought them onto the stage, so to speak. Double-edged sword, interest in theatre, interest in reading, but it's a tough battle.
And OTT has final name.
No, but see, I'll tell you something. I don't think there is any competition really. They're just two different mediums. Cinema is another, theatre is another. They're two different mediums. So, all those who are interested in theatre, more enriching experience will go to the theatre. Those who believe in the razzmatazz and the song and dance will go watch cinema. So I guess it's just that. Something for everyone. And meanwhile, struggling actors like ours will sing about Aram Nagar ke Haseen Sapne.
But I just wanted to say that with theatre, thank you, sir. With theatre also, what I've seen, because we've all sort of dabbled in theatre and a little bit of being on screen, yes. I think that the beauty of theatre remains that you feed off of the audience's energy, which was that point that you made about, in the during the pandemic when people were doing plays on Zoom calls. Sure, there was this spirit to keep something alive, and also that to sort of give a little bit of to give people to not make them feel that miserable, so that people feel that they're still connected with each other. So through art, what is the best way to do it? So theatre came as a tool, as sort of help over there, but theatre in itself, it takes from the people's energies, and people take from the actors' energies when on stage, because that is something that no amount of artificial intelligence or chat GPT or any sort of technology can replace
or be as fulfilling.
yeah, exactly. So because that is what we are feeling. Like right now, we're sitting and talking to you. We could have done this on a Zoom. If we had done this on a Zoom call, you tell me the difference. And in cinema, of course, we use a lot of sound and light and that kind of effects, the visual effects and all of that we use. And yes, it's very captivating, and it will leave you a little, once depending on how the film is, you'll walk out feeling goosebumps or sort of swearing at what you watched, depending on the quality of the film you watched. But that could be in theatre too. But in theatre, sometimes I've experienced this, and I'm sure it's a story for almost every actor, that they probably started off having a dull day, and once they're on stage, they've just taken from the anticipation of the audience without them saying a word, and before this person can even begin performing. And so that is very real, and that only happens in a physical space. So that is the beauty of theatre, I suppose.
Sound and fury sacrifice nothing.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Like every theatrical group,
in commercial theatre, finance is always a key issue, especially in cities like Nagpur. And there are no ads. OTTs have been doing it, movies have been doing it. Why can't we consider something like product placement in theatre and maybe attract some advertisers?
I think that already happens.
Is it?
Very much.
And that's a question that keeps coming up.
Yes. And I think there are also corporates, they are also looking at doing performances with, like you said, the star system to bring in at least even with stars.
corporates they'll sponsor you, but that doesn't ensure that there are seats for you.
Correct.
Stay at home, watching OTT.
I suppose the corporates would sponsor only those that where they can ensure the seats. So like they
Okay,
will not invest.
so they will sponsor star value, and that's the vicious circle.
Or they'll market it, but I suppose, for instance, in the theatre world, there is Atul Kumar, for instance, and he did a play called Diya Bherukia.
That's
Now,
fine.
Diya Bherukia does not have stars, but it's a massive hit as a show.
Yeah, but then it became a cult classic. So first, the branding is important.
Correct.
Have you seen the other?
Correct. So again, then what I'm saying is that it is possible to have hit shows even without stars, but then in that case, maybe the corporate funding is being used for marketing shows, which perhaps in a lot of plays or productions you can't even put that money for marketing, let alone getting stars.
And Gus will agree with me that 90% of a director's creative energies goes in sponsor rather than focusing on.
Right.
That's true, but the irony is also
That's
that
true
a lot
for
of
everyone.
theatre, like we have Sound of Music and all these global classics being brought to India and drawing a packed crowd at 5,000 rupees a ticket in an SCC, and yet we can't do the same for our own.
No, but I think that's true everywhere, I suppose, and not just in theatre. Like I'm a debut author. I've written a book, and that's where I can use my creativity. But I'm told by everybody, including my publishers, agents, everybody, you have to market. Now you have to be a marketer. Now you have to be a promoter. So you have to get into that zone, which is sometimes
Alien to.
Yes, it's not something which might come to me in the snaps of fingers, because that is not something that I would like to just write the book and leave somebody else to do that. But I think in today's world, it's really not a choice. Like you're a creative person, then you have to know somehow or learn somehow to market it. And in order to market it, in some cases, unfortunately, find the funding for it. So
Especially a small town like Nagpur, it's
but
But I'm sure there's a
Really?
solution. I'm sure there's a solution. We're just not ready to put our minds to it, is what I think.
I think that's a question that's going to come up, and it is a very real challenge for the theatre industry, one which I'm sure those pieces will be ironed out soon enough. And the magic is never going to go anywhere, like you said. Nothing can replace in-person live viewing of a performance. So movies have their own story, and theatre remains where it is. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was really